Jamie Dimon was back on Capitol Hill yesterday answering questions from the House Financial Services Committee after last week being grilled by the Senate. It was a lot more of the same. He opened with the same remarks and was sort of grilled with a lot of the same wacky questions from the likes of Maxine Waters. This has really just become a little bit of a crazy sideshow now, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, you can't really expect too much from Congress when it comes to investigating very complex financial questions. If you set aside a lot of time for them, they can do it, like they did when they had the whole inquiry a couple of years ago. But yeah, Maxine Waters was particularly storming in when she said, well, when you lost when your shares went down 30 billion, did that impact your US shareholders? Well, of course it did. Now, to Jamie Dimon's credit, he actually just answered, yes, it did.
Yeah, I thought his head might explode, but he actually did just answer the question.
I find the whole thing really does damage one's credibility in the guardians of our nation's balance sheet. I mean, by all means, we have to keep an eye on banks. We have to make sure regulation is effective. We have to make sure that a $2 to $4 billion loss at a private bank doesn't ever kind of affect the taxpayer.
And the Volcker rule was somewhat pertinent
all that.
here.
The problem is, I just think this is charade. I mean, they're sitting there grilling Jamie Dimon, and they're all kind of getting up and doing their grandstanding when we've got, we've got huge national crisis looming with the fiscal cliff at the end of this year. And nobody seems willing to grapple with that. They're looking at the J.P. Morgan income statement rather than the balance sheet of the United States of America, which is at peril.
Yeah, you're right. Because all right, we've got a lot of questions still about this trade. Right, we want to know what it is. Shareholders want more answers, and maybe they'll get them when Dimon gives more information next month. But even if they lose, say, $5–6 billion on this trade, it's still not going to make this bank unprofitable over the year, let alone put them in anywhere near shape or form needing any kind of taxpayer bailout. So yeah, you need to have them well regulated. You want to know what the regulators are doing and why, but at the moment it's really up to the regulators to dig around.
But we're in the middle of electoral politics, right? So what you have is, it's always useful for a politician to go out and bash bankers or the rich or those who they think have gotten ill-gotten gains, and likewise for the Republicans who are out there who are basically trying to get Jamie Dimon to say Dodd-Frank is a complete waste of time.
Yeah, there was
everyone's out there. It's a giant political exercise.
Well, even Barney Frank, who was out, obviously the Frank of Dodd-Frank, was out there, lobbying Jamie for more money for the CFTC to regulate. I mean, it was sort of a very peripheral issue that.
But you just pull back the camera and say, guys, like, we have a really big problem here. We've got 600. We've got basically, if you look at the fiscal cliff, which is a series, the Bush tax cuts expiring, the sequestration, the debt ceiling. I mean, but it depends who you talk to. But talking to Erskine Bowles yesterday, he said it's something like 2 to 4% of GDP that all of a sudden gets wiped out. If these things come into effect. I mean, we're talking about going into quite a severe recession in the first quarter of next year, and in the run-up to that, this grave uncertainty about where you can put your money, what the tax code is going to look like, all these things which are holding back economic growth, they're holding back investors, holding back companies.
Instead, we're worried about J.P. Morgan.
Sitting here worrying about J.P. Morgan,
I mean, sure, someone should worry about 20, 30 politicians in each. To do what? To try and look good on camera, and actually at times they even look pretty bad. They had a 2 or 3 minute argument between them about whether or not they should swear Dimon.
I think that the point, the takeaway is just it's not very credibility building to watch this kind of a thing play out.
Well, we'll hold out hope that maybe Congress can give as much attention and energy to the financial issues of the United States as they did to J.P. Morgan, and we'll be back with more Breaking Views tomorrow.